Hello folks. Welcome back to Great Ink Spectations. I am Andy, and this is my very first currently inked video. This is for November 2023, and I am super excited to show you which pens I will be using this month. So it's probably only right that I tell you a little bit about me and my pen habits and how I approach currently inked pens. So pens are fun for me. Pens are one of my favorite hobbies. And so I try not to be too anal about it, too rulesy about the whole thing, because I want pens to be fun. So I ink up pens, usually 10, 11, 12 pens per month that I intend to use. If I run across a terrible pairing, which happens occasionally, then I will unink the pen, toss it out, possibly ink it with something else or bring in another inked pen. I will most likely write several, if not most of these pens dry in November. So yeah, if I'm in the mood for something different, I will add something, I will subtract something. I try not to put too many qualifiers in place because I want it to be fun. So I have this beautiful wooden pen holder, and I cannot remember where I ordered it. I got it from Etsy, so I'll link that down below. But this holds the majority of my currently inked pens for the month, and I'm really excited to show you what I have going. So I always keep at least one pen inked with a black ink. This month it is the Kaweco Sport in Macchiato, and I just have the black Kaweco cartridge in this. I really like Kaweco ink. It works really well in Kaweco pens. There are some beautiful colors, and I love this pen because the kind of macchiato coffee color is a really nice neutral. So that's one. It doesn't get used a ton, but it's a good solid pen when I need black ink. So the first pen I'm going to pull out of the pen holder is the Leonardo Momento Zero Grande 2.0, and this is in the Primary Manipulation 1 resin from Jonathan Brooks, Carolina Pen Company, and this pen is beautiful. I've had it for a few months now, and you never know what you're going to get with primary manipulation, right? Like, you never know what that blank is actually going to look like when you get your pen. And mine, quite honestly, has a lot of these kind of green, muddy areas, and I don't mind that at all. I like green, muddy colors in my inks and things like that, as you'll see from what is in this pen. So I don't mind that at all. I really love this pen. It is incredibly comfortable. I did order it with a stub nib. That's all that was in stock at the time. And so I went ahead and ordered a replacement nib in a fine. So it does not match the silver trim on this pen because the nib is rose gold, but I don't really mind too much. Every color is in this pen, so that doesn't really bother me too much at all. So Leonardo MZG 2.0, and this is inked with Ferris Wheel Press Goose Poupon. So like I said, I love a grungy greeny ink, and that works just fine for this pen. Bring you in a little bit closer so you can see the ink and the writing. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this pairing. The ink is just a touch dry for this pen, I find, but I like a really wet writer. It's pretty average. I just prefer it to be a little on the wetter side. Next, we have an Esterbrook Estie Petrified Forest, and I have this nib, which is a special nib for the Dallas Pen Show. I had this ground by Kirk Spear at the Dallas Pen Show to a cursive smooth italic. This nib started its life as a broad, And I absolutely love this pen and nib. And this is inked with Ferris Wheel Press Steeped Umber. Steeped Umber is one of Ferris Wheel Press's wetter standard inks, I found. And so I really like it in this pen. It has some really nice shading. The nib is just glorious. Kirk Spear is magical. And so very much enjoying that pairing. Next up, we have the Bonu Talisman, and this is the Venus Hair special exclusive to Twsbi Pen Shop. And it is currently inked with Private Reserve Cadillac Green. Maybe not an obvious pairing, but I do like to put contrasting inks and pens together a lot of the time, especially if the pen is neutral. Then I feel like you can just put any color you want in it and it's fine and wonderful. But I had not used Cadillac Green in a little while, so I thought it would be a good pairing. And this is a fine nib. And I am writing on Leuchtturm paper today, just in my journal. I do have some comparisons on other papers, so we'll take a look at those. But I am really enjoying that pairing. The ink is very wet, great flow. This is a fine nib on the Benu Talisman. I've been forgetting to write that. Fine. This one is a CSI. And the Leonardo was a fine as well. So yeah, really enjoying that pairing, and I'm enjoying that ink, which I haven't used in a really long time. Next up, we have the Franklin-Christoph Model 46, and this is in the Cathedral material. And I'm not sure if this is the exact same material that Esterbrook uses for their Esties in Botanical Gardens, but it's very, very similar. I want to say it's the same material, but I don't know where that comes from. But this is a gorgeous pen. So rather than buy another Estie when I was at the Dallas Pen Show in September, I decided I would get a Franklin-Christoph in this material. And I also wanted a Franklin-Christoph gold nib. So this is a 14 karat extra fine nib. I am generally not an extra fine person, but because this is a gold nib, it has a little bit more bounce. And I was able to get Audrey Madison, who is the nibmeister for Franklin-Christoph, to tune this for me so that it wrote very wet. They did not have any fines in stock, and that would have been my preference. So she was very kind to tune this to really open it up some so that it has great flow. It was writing very, very dry for me. I would say even drier than a normal extra fine when I first got it. I mean, I put Yamabudo in this pen, which is the wettest ink I own, and it was still writing dry. And so when I told Audrey that, she was like, oh, no, no, no. That will not do. So this is a 14K extra fine, and it is inked with Diamine Syrah. And Diamine Syrah is another one of my very favorite inks. It's got great flow, a beautiful fall color, and it is just perfect for this extra fine nib. I also got the extra fine and the gold nib from Franklin-Christoph because it is compatible with Yovo pens, or pens that use a Yovo nib. And so I can use this gold nib on a variety of my pens, and it is just a great writer. Continuing with Franklin-Christoph, I can never remember the model of this pen. Let me see if I can find the model of this pen. I will put it down below. I always call it the Purpuratum because that is the material. This darker purple material along with this lavender. So I call it Purpuratum, but I want to say it's a model 55, maybe. This is a number 5 steel fine nib. And this is inked with Diamine Aurora Borealis. And this pen is just a pleasure to write with. I have gotten really used to number 6 nibs, so when I go down to a number 5, it feels very small. And in some pens, flimsy. But this Franklin-Christoph pen is wonderful. All right, on to the next, which is not fallish at all. I've really kind of been in pursuit of the best fall pairings, but then I got curious about this ink. This ink is the Monteverde Rose Pink. It's a very cool toned pink. And it struck me one day that it would look really nice in this Twsbi Vac 700R with the iris finish. And I've had a time with this ink. It was one that I just happened to buy from Mercari. It was in a lot of inks that I bought. And I just wasn't sure if I would use this ink. I wasn't sure if I would like this ink. I'm a pink person when I feel like it. And so I have found that this ink and this pen work really well together. This is a medium nib, I believe. Yes. A medium nib on this Vac 700. It is a very wet writer. And this is a fairly dry ink. Like, I've had some issues with this ink and other pens. It also writes fairly light to start with, but it sort of dries a little bit darker. And so I really like this pairing. I don't love this ink by itself. I don't always want to use this pen, but this pairing together is really, really nice, really fun. Not really fallish at all, but it is a ray of sunshine. All right, so this is one of my newer pens. I also picked this one up as a great deal from Mercari. This is the Platinum 3776 Black Diamond. So that just means that it's the black with the rhodium silver finishes. And this is in a medium nib. So platinum medium nibs are my absolute favorite. And I have this inked up with a combo of inks. So platinum 3776 Black Diamond. And this is inked with Ferris Wheel Press. No. This is inked with Birmingham Pen Company Periwinkle, which is a really light purple with a gray undertone. And it was writing a little too light for me, so I combined it with Ferris Wheel Press Grape Ice Pop. So I just needed it to write a little bit darker. just a little bit. So that's why I combined the two. And this has been a really nice pairing. I really enjoy these Franken inks together. I just have the cartridge included here. It still has quite a bit of ink in it, so I may or may not be able to finish this month. But yeah, it's a fun combo. And like I said, neutral pens, black pens, put whatever you want in that business. It looks really nice together. Next up, we have a Pelikan, and I never can remember whether it's an M200 or an M205. I believe this is the M200 Olivine, and it is inked with a Franklin-Christoph ink. So we're just going to call this the Pelikan Olivine because I can't remember if it's 200 or 205, but I'll put it down below. And this is inked with Franklin-Christoph Honeycomb. Honeycomb is a drier ink, but it is amazing in this Pelikan pen. You know, most of you probably know Pelikans write pretty broad and they're very wet writers. And so this is a great combo and I've really enjoyed using it. I don't have a ton of it left, just yay much. So I will probably write this dry pretty quickly. Speaking of Pelikan, we have the limited edition Golden Beryl. And this is inked with Ferris Wheel Press Hardy Harvest. Now, I will say I don't usually use Ferris Wheel Press inks this much. I'm not a Ferris Wheel Press super fan, but I had to have Hardy Harvest when it first came out. And I really enjoyed it. And this is a medium nib as well with Ferris Wheel Press Hardy Harvest. Beautiful shimmer in this ink. Love the orange color, love the shading. It is just a perfect match for this Golden Beryl pen, and so I was really glad that I thought of that combination. You know, like I've said, Ferris Wheel Presses, inks run a little drier. This one feels pretty average to me, and it has beautiful, beautiful shimmer. So really happy with that ink and pen pairing. Next up, my first video on this channel was an unboxing of the Sailor Manyo nuts. And it is still inked with the Sailor Manyo ink in Shirakashi. Love it. And that does have a, what is it, 14 karat medium, 18, 14 karat. Beautiful pen, beautiful ink, great writing experience. No complaints. No complaints there at all. And then last but certainly not least, one more Franklin-Christoph. This is the Model 3 Modified. I purchased this from Sarah at Ginger Peachy Pens. And I have this outfitted with a fine Sig nib. And I'll let you guess what pink this is. It's a diamond color. I bet you can guess. Hope pink. I love Diamond Hope Pink. I am not always a pink person. I've tried to embrace my inner unicorn a little bit more as of late, and I just love this ink. I will definitely have an 80 ml bottle of this. I love that it is eye-searingly pink. Like it is the pinkest of the pinks, and I absolutely love it. And I love it in this salmon glow Franklin-Christoph with the Sig nib is so good. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So that is my currently inked for November 2023. I do want to show you some comparison writing. And I did have the forethought to put these in the same order on all the papers. I know, I can't believe it myself. So we have 3 papers here. We have the Midori paper, which I have recently fallen fairly heavily in love with. We have Kikuyo paper. And we have Tomoe River, because of course we do. So let's take a look at these. I'll start with the Midori. What I'm finding with Midori and with Kikuyo in comparison to Tomoe River is that the inks are a lot more, I don't know, they're more brilliant, more saturated. They're just more. I did have a couple of pens that I started the month with that I have already uninked. So the Opus 88 Coloro White Pink in a medium with Dominant Industry Maple. Just didn't love the pairing. Honestly, don't love the pen. We'll probably be selling that pen. And then I had started with a Twsbi Eco Tea Coral that I'd had inked for several months, and I finally wrote that one dry, so they are no longer included in the lineup. But yeah, the Kikuyo and the Midori are very similar in the ways that they show shading very well, and the colors are very brilliant, very saturated, maybe a little bit broader writing on those papers, because they are just different. They are just different than Tomoe River. Tomoe River, the colors are still very brilliant, very beautiful, but in my opinion, the ink kind of sits on top of the paper a little bit more. With Kikuyo and the Midori, they are all very pleasant writing experiences. But they just show up a little differently on each paper. And I think those of us who are paper nerds, who are fountain pen nerds, who are consistently using different papers, will find this to be true, you know? To me, the inks look a little drier on Tomoe River than they do on Kikuyo and Midori. They look a little juicier here to me, but they are all a similarly wonderful writing experience. So I have no complaints whatsoever about any of these papers. I've also recently started using Cosmo Air Light, and what I find to be the case on Cosmo Air Light is that you just get a broader line. Ink tends to spread a little bit more on Cosmo Air Light. It is still a wonderful experience. It is great writing, but it's just different. Again, it spreads in a way that it does not on these 3 papers. And that is not to say that it feathers. It doesn't. You just get a broader line. So writing with an extra fine on Cosmo Air Light is going to be much less fine than it is on Tomoe River or any of these, okay? So, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the best way to compare different papers. And I need to watch Kristen from Life Inspires Design more because she does a great job with that. So anyway, I enjoyed all of these pen and ink pairings on all of these papers. I'm very much looking forward to using these in November. And let me know if you've used any of these pens or inks, what you think of them. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.